Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man ihtada bihadah wa nashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa nashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Allahumma la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Allahumma 'allimna ma yanfa'una wanfa'na bima 'allamtana wa zidna ilma warzuqna fahma an-nabiyyin wa hifdha al-mursalin. Allahumma iftah ilayna hikmatak wa anshur alayna rahmatak ya dhal jalali wal ikram. Wa sallallahu على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الكرام ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. بسم الله الحمد لله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So our subject of today now, inshallah, is to look at the prophecy of the prophet Isaiah. The prophecy of Isaiah alayhi salam. The prophet Isaiah is not mentioned in the Quran, he's not in the Hadith, but he is recognized as a prophet by the scholars, the ulama, Imam al-Tabari, Ibn Ishaq, Ibn Kathir. They have all documented and written about the prophet Isaiah. And one of the most notable books, part of the Old Testament, is the book of Isaiah. So we're going to look at a few extracts from that book, inshallah, in this session and in the next session also. It's a two-part, so there are two chapters here, and most likely in the following session as well, a third part. So let's begin, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's dominion is created in balance. Everyone understand, recognize that? Everything has been created in balance. We say that there is good, there is evil, there is up, there is down. Right, there's right, there's wrong. There's physicality, there's metaphysicality. Okay. So, even when it seems that from a human point of view, that one force might be dominantly crossing the threshold of the balance, okay, it might seem that falsehood is overwhelming and taking over truth, or wrong is taking over the right and the balance is being upset. From a human vantage point, it might seem like one is dominating another. But in the holistic scheme of things, it is evened out. We don't know how, right? These happen in mannerisms beyond our comprehension, because we cannot see the unseen. We cannot see what's happening in the ghaib aspect of things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best what he is doing and how he is doing it. The balance between these opposing forces is always in a perpetual but harmonic push and pull, okay, until one overwhelms the other and is subsequently itself overwhelmed by the former. So one pushes the other, it overwhelms it, and then suddenly the other one comes over, overwhelms it, and this dynamic continues onwards in this world of phenomena and causality. Okay, so what you tend to see when we pull back and examine the whole thing, we find that victory is sometimes granted to one, okay, for a temporal duration, and then that victory is taken away and then it's given to the other, right? Now, truth in modernity and on the elitist podium, okay, in our contemporary age, in this modernity, with all its isms and ists and philosophies and ideologies, the truth, as we mentioned before, is a subjective thing, okay? That's how they perceive it and that's how they regard it. So it is subjectively conditional on what? On the projector and its sophistry. Okay, so among these elitists, among the higher, levels and platforms of society, the truth is subjective on the one who is speaking it and how well he's speaking it, how well he's articulating it. So it's subjective on the projector of the truth and the sophistry with which he's projecting it. While on the mundane level, on the lower elements of society, intellectually speaking, it's essentially whoever shouts the loudest. And this is why you find when fools argue, the argument is less pertaining the subject matter of what's being argued. It's more a shouting match. Whoever can shout the loudest ultimately becomes the one who wins the argument. That's what remains on the lower level. Okay. Now, from a causal effectual point of view, either or, the truth or falsehood, seems to have an equal opportunity to emerge victorious. Okay, so if we just look at the horizontal plane, it looks like the truth and falsehood, since there is a balance, they have an equal opportunity to arrive victorious. However, from an existential point of view, and this is the point of view we want to establish, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's eternal power and knowledge entails that the truth has been destined to gain victory over falsehood. Just as good, ultimately, as destined to overcome evil. And ultimately, no matter what transpires from a human perspective, from a subjective level, the eventuality of everything will only be what He ordains it to be. And He has ordained an eternity of purity and tranquility, which from a human perspective is difficult for most to comprehend, especially when their sights are veiled by the causal nexus of this world of phenomena. Ahmad ibn Ajiba says in his tafsir of Surah Al-Kahf, very interesting statement he makes. He says, خَفِيَةٌ عَنْ أَبْصَارِ الْمُسْتَمْسِكِينَ بِالْأَسْبَابِ الْعَادِيَةِ. That the truth is veiled from the sights of those who cling to nominal causes. Nominal causes are this causal effectual world. Subjective analysis. See, this is what he's saying. If you cling to this level of subjectivity and causality, then the truth will be veiled from your sights. You won't be able to see it. That those who affirm that reality is only based on empirical evidence of a cause to an effect. What's your dalil? Everything needs a dalil. What's your dalil? If that's it, and you're not going to allow some sort of insight to be involved as well, some sort of understanding to be derived as well, you'll never realize the divine truth. For one to truly recognize falsehood, essentially you must detach from the causal nexus. Adnahu taraka dunya. You have to detach from this dunya aspect of things and look at things from a more existential point of view, from a more objective point of view, from a higher level of intelligence. So long as the mind intellects solely within the confines of the causes and the effects, it is equally likely to find some factual truths, and it is also likely to be deceived by those same facts. You understand what we were talking about in subjectivity and objectivity? So long as you're stuck on this level and the mind only intellects at this level, you'll see facts and you will find truth in those facts, but you're equally likely to be deceived by those same facts. And deception, more often than not, is less pertinent on the skill of the deceiver and more a provisory on the incompetence of the one who is being deceived. Let me explain what that means. It means that the Dajjal succeeds when we fail to intellect the truth. The deception is more effective on the ignoramus than the one who is trying to, or than the skills of the deceiver. The skills of the deceiver are limited to the deceiver. Okay? But the deception occurs and successfully occurs based primarily on the ignorance of the one being deceived. It's more because of if we fail to intellect the truth, then the Dajjal succeeds in his mission. This is what we talked about before, right? And so now remember what we said about the scholarly principles, one of which was what? بِضِدِّهَا تَتَبَيَّنُ الْأَشْيَاء. Things are often known by their opposites. So we say that in order to understand the Antichrist, we have to understand Christ. Now, how does this work on a more Let's go a little bit more in depth on this point. Seeking knowledge has got a twofold act of asking questions. So there's an aspect of asking questions and then seeking the answers to those questions. So there's a twofold act. One act is asking questions, and while you're asking questions, you are seeking the answers to those questions. So if you look in the Arabic language, there's a very interesting aspect to the Arabic language. There are no question marks in the Arabic language, but you have what are known as adatul istifham. Okay, you've got instruments by which questioning can be done. Now, istifham comes from the root word of fahima, which means what? To understand. So in the Arabic language, the act of asking a question is for the intent of understanding, of seeking the answer. So there's the action of asking, and then simultaneous to that is the action of seeking. It's confusing, I know, but if you think on a linear level, you will be thinking about one and the other, subsequently in sequence. No, it is not sequential in that sense. It's parallel. It's a parallel act, and this is known. It's known as the equilibrium of wonder. Let me explain that. Even at the very subsistent level, at the very mundane level of asking, say for example, in you reading the book, okay? While you're reading a book, what are you doing? You're doing two things. You're asking the book to tell you what it's got. You're asking the book a question. And at the same time, you're trying to understand what it is telling you. So there are two aspects to it. This is why we say reading is not just a passive mode of looking at the words. Reading entails study at the same time. And it's the act of doing both that enables understanding of what you are reading. Right? So, even at the very subsistent level, we are always asking questions to which we are seeking answers, whether consciously or subconsciously. Ultimately, the mind layers what it comes to know into an understanding that can be formulated into a sort of a philosophy, an idea. Okay? And all philosophy, as Socrates said, begins at wonder. All philosophy begins at wonder. You'll find this in Plato's works. Plato does a dialogue between Socrates and I forgot. I believe it's Theaetetus or someone of the sort. I forgot. Those Greek names are confusing. He says, for this is an experience which is a characteristic of a philosopher, this wondering. Okay? This is where all philosophy begins and nowhere else, which is a very interesting statement for someone like Socrates to say. Because it makes a clear distinction between religion as a revealed knowledge and philosophy as a knowledge based on human thought. So what Socrates is saying is that philosophy is not revealed. Philosophy is based on wonder. This is where philosophy originates and does not originate anywhere else. This is what we talked about way before when you asked me about that question. Remember? What did I say? Islam is not an ideology. Islam is revealed. You cannot say that Islam is a philosophy, and you cannot call Islam an ideology. The moment you do that, you have falsified the religion because you've turned it into a philosophy. So don't do that. Then be careful with words and how those meanings are associated. So this is the equilibrium of wonder. If you are consciously thinking about something, you are also consciously thinking about its antonymic form as well. You're always doing this. Whenever you think about down, you're also thinking about up. If you're thinking about right, you're also thinking about the wrong. And this is what, it's beautiful. In the Quran, Allah says what? That ayah that I quoted. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Both have been inspired in you. Alam naj'al lahu aynayn, did he not give you two eyes? Wa lisanan wa shafatain, and a tongue and two lips. Wa hadaynahu najidain, and he showed you two pathways. You're always thinking, if you think about one, you're thinking about the other side as well. This is the equilibrium of wonder. There's an equilibrium in your wondering, in your thought process, in your formulation. And so hence, from that, formulating an understanding of the Antichrist cannot be done without understanding Christ. Why? Because it is impossible. Let me repeat that. It is impossible to think of one without thinking of the other. If you are only thinking of one and not thinking of the other, there is something wrong with your thought process. And anything you derive from that premise will always be flawed. You cannot, it's impossible to think about one and not think about the other. It's impossible to think about the Antichrist and not think about Christ. It's impossible for you to seek out the truth and not know what falsehood is. It's impossible. If your mind is okay, if you are a sane individual, a sane human being, there has to be an equilibrium in your thought. Otherwise, your thoughts will always be biased. And on that bias, you will never arrive at the truth. That bias will be subjective. That bias will never be objective. Okay? Where's the evidence for this? Where's the evidence for this equilibrium of thinking about Christ and Antichrist at the same time? It's in the Hadith. It's in the Hadith. Narrated by Abdullah ibn Umar. You'll find it. You'll find it in the Muwatta. You'll find it Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim. You'll find it it has what's known as the golden chain of transmission. From Imam Malik through his teacher Nafi', who then narrates it from Abdullah ibn Umar, right? Who then said that the Prophet ﷺ narrated a dream that he had. And in that dream, he was in the Haram at the Kaaba, and he saw two figures. And one he named Al-Masih, Isa, and the other one he named Al-Masih Ad-Dajjal. Now, this is a very interesting aspect. This is where we're going to go into a little bit of logic. Now, in logic, I understand some of you haven't studied logic, and I understand that, and that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to try my best to try and explain what I'm talking about here. But inshallah, you'll get it. The more you get into it, okay, the more you familiarize yourself with how it works and how the terms are used, the better your understanding will be. So you'll get it, inshallah. Now, in logic, a species is determined from its genus by differentiating it from the rest of the same genus. What do we mean by this? Remember, I told you there are 5 predicables, right? There's the genus, there's the species, the differentia, the event, and then the accidental, or the specific, the specificity of it, and then the accidental or the event, okay? So we're not talking about the last 2. We're only interested in the first 3 here. So the genus is like the comprehensive, the general category, okay? And the species is one of the components in that category. So think about the forest, which is a collection of trees. And then in this collection of trees, you might have an oak tree, you will have a birch tree, you will have this, that, and you'll have all these different species in there. How do you differentiate these trees? By differentiating the trees. How do you find the specific species that you want to refer to? By differentiating it from the rest of the other things in that group. Okay? So, let's take an example which is we can relate with. The human being. Okay? The logicians differentiate the human being from the animal genus as Al-Hayawan An-Natiq, the speaking animal. And they also differentiate the human being as Al-Hayawan Al-Aqil, the intellective animal or the rational animal. Now, both of these descriptives are referring to the same species, but both of these are different in and of themselves. They are the same, but they're also different. The difference is the same. What is the common denominator? The common denominator between them. The common denominator is that they are both al-hayawan. They are from the same genus. That's the common denominator. The difference is given by the second term that describes the first term. This we call in logic subject and predicate. Okay? Or you could use more simpler language such as noun and adjective. So the adjective describes the noun. Okay? If I have dog and dog, how will you know which is which? Unless I say big dog and small dog. Now you know that this one is different from this one. Right? You understand what I'm saying? Yeah? Okay. Or let me give you another example of the same. If I say apple and apple, how do you know they're different or the same? How do you know? You don't know. I'm saying apple and apple. So there's an apple in this hand and an apple in this hand. How do you know which is which? You don't, unless I describe them. So if I say red apple and then green apple. Red apple, green apple. Now you're differentiating them. Now in your mind, you know which one I'm talking about. So if I say the red apple, you know I'm talking about this one. Because the descriptive there is the color. Okay? So I'm giving it a descriptive. That's the predicate. This is the subject. The apple is the subject. Okay? The apple is the subject. The color that I gave each one is the predicate. Understand the terms? Okay. So the first term is the subject. The second term is the predicate. Al-Hayawan here is the subject. Al-Natiq or Al-Aqil is the predicate. That's what differentiates the two. The difference between them is given by the second term, which is its predicate or its quality. How would we elaborate this then? How would we articulate this difference? We would hence say how they are different. We would say that the rational or the intellective being can speak, but not every speaker is rational or intellectual. The rationalist can speak. Every rationalist can speak, but not every speaker is rational. They are both human, and every human being can speak, but not every human being is rational. Not every human being is intellectual. All human beings are intelligent. Let's not play with words so much here, but let me make this clear. Every human being has an intellect and is intelligent. But not every human being is intellectual. Intellectual is the ability to really execute the intellect. For most people, the intellect is dormant. For most people. Because they don't use it. If you use it, then you are intellecting. Okay? You're being intellective. And so you could be called an intellectual. So everyone has intelligence. Everyone has an intellect. Don't call people stupid based on their intellect. No. The stupidity is their inability to use the intellect. That's what it is. Okay? Anyway. Okay? So, likewise, okay? Every human is animal, but not every animal is human. Every human is animal, but not every animal is human. And this is how this differentiation of things brings us to specificity. And that specificity gives us a clearer understanding of things. This is the reason. This is what logic is meant for. It is meant for you to clarify things, to make them more intelligible. Okay? It's not used, logic should not be used for the wrong things, like manipulation of law. This is where they make mistakes. And this is why mantiq is given a bad name. It's not a bad thing in and of itself. It's a beautiful science if you use it the right way. Likewise, physics is a beautiful science if you use it the right way. You see, but then people want to use these sciences for the wrong intentions and for the wrong results. Then they give it a bad name. So, the same logic here is applied to the true Messiah and the false Messiah. If you look then, there is Al-Masih Isa and Al-Masih Ad-Dajjal. So Al-Masih is the common denominator between the two, which means they are from the same genus. Okay? But the predicates that have been associated with these two words is what makes them different. So if I say Al-Masih, Al-Masih, which one am I talking to? Which one am I referring to? Unless I specify, right? How do I specify? I have to differentiate the two. So I say Al-Masih Ad-Dajjal, Al-Masih Isa ibn Maryam. Now you know this one is this one and that one is that one. How do we articulate this difference? because one is true and the other one is false. One is the true Messiah, the other one is the false Messiah. How do we articulate this difference? The term Messiah differentiates them from the rest of the genus. So the first term differentiates both of these entities from the rest of the genus. So you go down this hierarchy in this way. So you have animal, and then from animal you derive human, then from human you derive rational human, then from rational human you derive two specific individuals who are the messiahs. And then from these two specific individuals, because each genus gives you the next species, and then each species is a genus for the next species, and then the next one, like that. Okay, so now you arrive at these two. Now you want to differentiate these two. So Al-Masih is their comprehensive umbrella. They are both Al-Masih, but which one is which? How do we articulate this? This is how we will do it. Listen carefully. The false Messiah is true. The false Messiah is true, but the true Messiah is not false. And both the Messiahs are human, but not every human is a Messiah. Let me repeat that. You can post this on your Facebook. The false Messiah is true. Let's break it down. Is the false Messiah false? Is it a fabrication? It's not a fabrication, right? It's true. The false Messiah is true, but the true Messiah is not false. Both these Messiahs are human. They are of the same genus. But not every human is a Messiah. Let's elaborate it further. It is true that there is a false Messiah. That's a truth. Now we've established truth through the line of reasoning. You see how we have applied logic into breaking everything down, differentiating it, and then coming to a specificity. Now we are establishing a truth. That truth, since we have gone from the subjective elements, we've gone through the line of reasoning to the objective elements. Now we are looking at, can we establish an absolute truth? And we will only establish that when we verify it with the absolute truth, with revealed knowledge. Okay? But we already know what the revealed knowledge is. We know what the prophecy is. We know what the Quran is. So we know that if the hadith says it, it's true. But we're going through the line of reasoning to show you how that is achieved also. Okay? So it is true that there is a false Messiah. That's a truth. Now, it is also true that this false Messiah has the potential to appear to be truth. He has the potential to appear to be true by the act of impersonification. That's also true. So it is true that there is a false Messiah, and it is true that this false Messiah will pretend to be true. His existence is true, but his embodiment is false. See how we are distinguishing it now. His existence is true, but his embodiment is false. That's for the first one, Al-Masih ad-Dajjal. Let's look at the second one, Al-Masih Isa ibn Maryam. The true Messiah can never be false because he is true. If he is true, he cannot be false. So the true Messiah can never be false. And so his existence is also true, but his embodiment is only the truth. Let me repeat that. Because he is true inherently. Okay? The predicate that is associated with Messiah in this category, the predicate says that this Messiah is true. That one is false. So it could be either way. And we have clarified what the either way entails. Okay? Existence is true, but embodiment is false. Because the embodiment of truth is done by impersonification. It's not done by truth. So embodiment is false. If he embodies the truth, that truth is a falsity. This one, however, the Messiah, the predicate is true. So this is a true Messiah. So this true Messiah, because he's a true Messiah, can never be false. So his existence is also true. And his embodiment is only the truth. In conclusion, once the truth has transcended rationality and penetrated the heart, and you've understood this now, there is a conviction now in the truth. You've gone through the line of reasoning. You asked, what is this? And then you asked, what is this? Then you asked, what is this really? What is this really? And then you went through the process of ratification. Is it this or is it that? Is it like this or is it that? If it is this, then it can't be that. You see, you've done this now. I've carried you along the logic. And then we arrived at a conclusion, at a judgment. Now we can put a conviction in that judgment, because now we have removed all the impossibilities. All the possibilities have now been refined into what we would call a necessity. And because it is a necessity, we can affirm it as truth. So once the truth has transcended rationality, this is the line of reasoning, rationality, and then now it has penetrated the heart as a conviction, falsehood can now be eradicated. Falsehood, anything that appears as false now, can now be removed, and it becomes apparent, so it can be removed. Look on page 127. You will see the diagrammatic there. Okay? This will help you understand how this categorization is done. Take a look, take your time and study that line of reasoning. That's good for you. Now, we're going to skip ahead a little bit, because all this pertains the Bible and understanding what the Bible is. That's not our subject of study today. We want to focus on the prophet Isaiah. Now, so, what did the prophet Isaiah bring? The prophecy of Isaiah will be found in the Old Testament, in the book of Isaiah. Okay, it's a book. It's an entire book. So we are only looking at specific elements that pertain our study. So we're looking at two pivotal elements of a prophecy that he delivered. Okay, but before we go into that, there are a few things we need to clarify. Number one, the prophet Isaiah was sent to the Israelites, not the Jews. He was not sent to the Jews. Understand this distinction. It might seem trivial, but it's not, because it will help us later on down the line when we try to distinguish between the children of Israel and the Jews whom we are dealing with today. Okay? The prophet Isaiah was sent to the Israelites, not the Jews. Okay? The term Jew, which is translated as Yahud in the Quran, okay, is actually derived from the Old English roots in French, in Old French, the term Jew or Juiu, I don't know how to pronounce it in French, Juiu or something of the sort, which comes from Latin. Now this Latin is a Latinized term, okay, of the kingdom of Judea, sorry. Judaea, Judea. Because when the Romans came, what they found was the kingdom of Judah, Yehuda, in Hebrew, Yehuda. Okay? And then a series of events transpired from there. We will look at those later on, inshallah. So remember this, he was sent to the Israelites, not the Jews. So he was sent at a time before the Roman occupation arrived, and then called the people that they found there Judeans. Okay? Prior to that, they were the children of Israel. Number two, the prophecy of Isaiah is both adored and abhorred by the Jews. They love it and they detest it at the same time, for many reasons. These reasons are what we are going to look at in these particular prophecies. Number three, the texts that we have highlighted here are not from the new revised versions of the Bible. The texts that I've highlighted here are from two sources. One is from the Codex Sinaiticus, which is the original transcription in Koine Greek. The second is from the book of Isaiah, or the great scroll of Isaiah that was discovered in the caves of Qumran as part of the entire collection of the Dead Sea Scrolls. These are the two sources that we have cited here. So if there are any Christians who are watching this, be careful not to go into the New Testament and then start seeing a conflict between the two. We are not citing from the New Revised Versions or the King James Bible either. We are citing from these older scrolls, from these older sources. Okay, so now Isaiah's arrival as a prophet to the Israelites was just prior to the Babylonian enslavement, just prior, almost, not almost, in the same time period. In that same time period. Ibn Ishaq, At-Tabari, Ibn Kathir, a few other scholars, they have placed him somewhere around the mark of 740 BC. So the 7th century BC before Christ. Okay? And he's recognized to have brought 3 key distinct prophecies that he was sent to reveal. So we're going to look at these 3 in short. Actually, we're going to focus more on just one of those for now. So the first of this was a prophecy regarding the 2 final forthcoming prophets. One is the Savior, Al-Masih, and then the other is the seal of the prophets, Khatam al-Nabiyyin. Okay? So one is the Savior and the other is the seal. Keep these in mind. Of course, you know who we are referring to. Nabi Isa alayhi salam and Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now, the second prophecy that he was sent to deliver, or rather his mission, was to help the Israelites to build a proper defense against the Neo-Assyrian invasion that was carried out by Sennacherib. Sennacherib was the king of the Neo-Assyrian Empire between 705 and 681, if I remember correctly. Babylonia was at the time part of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. Okay, and he was preceded by Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar, who was also known as Nebuchadnezzar the Great, was the second king of Babylon between 605 and 562 BC. Okay, don't worry about those right now, but it's good to do some research on that. It's good to go and study those elements, the Neo-Assyrian Empire and then the Neo-Babylonian Empire that followed that. Okay, so Isaiah was sent to help the Israelites build a defense against them, because they were the Neo-Assyrians were expanding their empire. These were conquerors, right? So wherever they went, they conquered. The third piece was to warn the Israelites against a forthcoming doom if they did not change their ways. Now, remember when we talked about Sulaiman alayhi salam and what transpired after that? From that point onwards, even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did send the Israelites prophets, they still kept on going down on a steady decline. Okay? They had expanded into devil worshipping, Satanism, Luciferianism, whatever, all those. Some of the roots that ended up falling into the Kabbalah that were written much later on, which essentially now serves as the magnum opus of Jewish mysticism, okay, which they say is the spiritual guide. It's not. It's a book of witchcraft. It's a book of witchcraft. Jews should use their head, even apple. That's not a revealed text. Okay, that's not a revealed text. Don't follow that Kabbalah. It's a book of sorcery if you read it. In that book, they've changed a lot of things. At one point, I mean, first of all, they lowered Jibril in rank completely, because they didn't like the fact that Jibril was sent to Maryam, okay, to tell her that the Messiah is going to be born to you. They didn't like that, because they didn't like the Messiah to begin with. And then and to make matters worse, they raised Iblis in rank. It's there in the Kabbalah. They raised Iblis in rank. They said, oh, Satan was actually looking out for mankind. He was being friendly. Yeah, he wanted mankind to succeed. That's why he showed mankind the tree of knowledge so he could eat the fruit and become knowledgeable. That's where our knowledge comes from. All thanks to Satan. Astaghfirullah. Na'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. So they were actually sinking way low and they were on the cusp now. Now in Surah Isra, you will see the sequence of events in the first 8 ayat. Surah Al-Isra. We'll talk about that in the next session, inshallah. We'll look at each of those in a little bit of detail. Okay, but you will see, go and study Surah Isra, the first 8 ayah, you will get the sequence of events. There were 2 occasions that Allah said to them that you will cause corruption in the earth and you will be destroyed. 2 occasions. One was this incursion by the Babylonians. Allah sent his servants, the Babylonians, to defeat them and take them into enslavement. The second round was the Romans. And let's not argue. People like arguing this point. How can Allah call the Babylonians, who are fire worshippers and this worshippers and that worship, how can they be his servants? No, that's not. If you don't understand what everything in Allah's creation is in servitude to Allah. Even when they are not serving Allah through worship, they are serving Allah through other means. It's his ordainment. He wants it to be that way. They plan their plans, he plans his plans. Either way, their plans are part of his plan. Okay? We're not discussing that right now. We'll talk about that later on, inshallah. So, the king of the Israelites at the time was Hezekiah. Hezekiah or Ezekias was the son of Ahaz. He was the 13th king of Judah. He is considered to have been a righteous ruler in the Old Testament, in the second book of Kings, I believe, as well as in the Jewish compendium or the book of Chronicles. You will see an account of Hezekiah or Ezekias. Okay, he was considered to be a righteous ruler, and so he listened to the prophet Isaiah when he came to him. Now, look at this point very clearly. Isaiah came to help strengthen the governance. He didn't come there to establish Khilafah. Even though he was a prophet, he did not outrank the king, and he had no interest to do so. He was sent to help the king establish a defense, and he was sent to give them prophecy about impending threat and a prophecy that would also save them. So look at this balance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given in that equilibrium. He has sent a prophecy telling them there is a threat coming, but he has also sent them a prophecy with good news. A savior will also come. You see, this is the balance. This is the equilibrium. That's an ishara. We're drawing an ishara. Okay. People ask, where is your dalil in the tafsir? Anyway. So even though he heeded, Ezekiel followed Isaiah's warning. The vast majority of the Israelites, as stubborn as they ever were, they rejected. They didn't change their ways. They didn't change their ways. Now, during his reign, they were barely able to defeat the first scourge. Okay? They were incapacitated from that war. But they were able to defeat Sennacherib, who was the first to try and conquer them. And they took him prisoner. They also took prisoner Nebuchadnezzar, who was at the time a general in Sennacherib's army. However, something interesting took place at that time. They had taken him prisoner, but because the Jews refused, the Israelites refused to change their ways. They just refused. They simply ignored everything. What Isaiah did, he advised the king to let Sennacherib and Nebuchadnezzar go. Look at the wisdom here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them the strength. Rather than be grateful, they continued in their transgressive ways. So what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do? He tells his messenger, his prophet, to advise the king to let them go. Let the ones who try to conquer you, let them go. So what do these conquerors do? They go back, they build an army, and then they come back. I couldn't figure this out. I couldn't figure this out. When I read this and I looked at these verses, and the commentaries on that, I said, this doesn't make sense. Why would Isaiah do that? Why would he warn the king that this commander is coming to fight you and conquer you, and then he helps them gain a victory over the conquering army, but then he turns around and then he tells the king to release them? Why was he doing that? I mean, he's a prophet of Allah. There must be a reason. There's one of two possibilities here, right? Either what's been written in the text is wrong, there's a mistake there, or being a prophet of Allah, this has been ordained. He was told to do that by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think that makes more sense, because let's say we give the benefit of the doubt and say we assume, okay, that the text has not been altered by the Jews or the Christians or anyone. Say the text is correct. That means we have to figure out and say and conclude by saying that this was ordained by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There must be a reason. So here is now the reason being unveiled. Because the Jews, the Israelites, refused to change their ways. Despite being told, despite being given the warnings, despite being given the prophecies, they refuse. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told his messenger, his prophet, advised the king to release the tyrants who were trying to conquer you. And so these tyrants return to their homeland. They rebuild their armies, okay? They increase their capacity and they come back now with a much greater force. And this time Allah does not give the Israelites victory. He gives them defeat. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. So, let's look at the prophecies now that Isaiah gave them, okay? In the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verses 1 and 2, he says, comfort ye, my people, saith your Lord. Speak ye comfortably to Jerusalem, and cry for her, that her warfare has been accomplished, that her iniquity is pardoned. For she hath received the Lord's hand double, despite all her sins. What is he saying? What is he talking about? Despite your ignorance, despite your insolence, God has still given you victory against the Babylonians. This is before they were taken into enslavement. This is when Isaiah advised Hezekiah and he listened. And they built up a defense and they were able to push them back. This is what is being told here. Relax, take it easy. You listened to your Lord and your Lord granted you favor. Okay? What happened afterwards? Afterwards, when they were conquered and taken into enslavement, the narrative changes now. Isaiah gave them another prophecy to show them also what would happen if you do not change your ways. So he says in the same chapter 40, verse 9, O Zion, and see how the verses change. Remember what we talked about Medina and, did we discuss this? Medina and Qarya. No, we didn't discuss this. We talked about this when we were doing the Kimya al-Sa'ada. Okay. You will find in the Quran sometimes Allah uses the word Medina and sometimes He uses Qarya referring to the same location. Okay? When referring to the same location, sometimes He'll use the word Qarya, sometimes He'll use Medina. Now, the word Qarya has a negative connotation. The word Medina has a positive connotation. And there's a reason why He changes between the two. So, if you haven't, take a look at, it's in audio only. So take a listen to some of those lectures. I don't know in which session it was explained, but take a look at that. Okay. And I believe we're going to talk about this later on, inshallah, as well. Here, the same thing is applied. When he's talking to them in favor, he calls them Jerusalem. When he's talking to them in harshness, he calls them Zion. So listen to now, because this is what we mean. The narrative has changed. The same people are being addressed, but they're given a different term now. O Zion, that brings good tidings, get up these to the high mountain. O Jerusalem, that brings good tidings, lift up thy voice with strength. Lift it up, don't be afraid. Say unto the cities of Judah, behold your God, Behold your God. Say Allahu Akbar. So the good people and the bad people were all enslaved. They were all to be enslaved, the whole bunch. Okay? This is what they were being told. You Zionists. Zionists is the same thing. You Zionists. Okay? You will also be enslaved. You of Jerusalem, you will also be enslaved. In your enslavement, there's going to be glad tidings coming to you. So don't despair. You will be enslaved, but there will be glad tidings coming to you. So behold, lift up your head and say, behold your Lord. Saith the Lord. This is Isaiah 46:13. Saith the Lord, I bring near my righteousness. It is not far off. I bring near my righteousness. It is not far off. And my salvation will not delay. And I will grant salvation and my glory for Israel. So don't worry. This is now in their enslavement. Okay. So Isaiah is giving them a prophecy of what's going to happen when they are in enslavement. He's telling them that this is going to be your situation at that time. Isaiah 62:11 and 12. He then says, behold, the Lord is proclaimed to the end of the earth. Say to the daughter of Zion, lo, your salvation now comes. Behold, his reward is with him. Recompense before him. And they will call them the holy people, the redeemed of the Lord. They have earned redemption. And you will be called, sought out, a city not forsaken. What does this mean? This is when they were in Babylon. They would be enslaved in Babylon. Those addressed here now are not those who are the righteous. Those addressed here now are those who are the transgressors. And those transgressors, when they would seek out redemption, their Lord would pardon them and would give them a return back to their holy land. Sought out, a city not forsaken. There will be another force Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would send who would help them rebuild their broken homes. Okay? And this, if you look up history, was at the hands of the Persian king Cyrus the Great. And this is why he is revered in the Jewish tradition. Because Cyrus the Great helped them return to the Holy Land. He helped them rebuild the temple. Now, they call it temple, but it was essentially a masjid. Because when Sulaiman built the masjid, the Babylonians came and destroyed the masjid. So then when Cyrus the Great, when they got imprisoned by the Babylonians, then later on Cyrus the Great helped them return. He helped them rebuild the masjid a second time around. So this was now known as the second temple age. Okay, it was the second age, or the second temple age. So the first one was with Sulaiman, the second one was rebuilt like this. The third one is what they want to build now. This is in the Quran. In Surah Al-Isra, ayah number 6. ثُمَّ رَدَّدْنَا لَكُمُ الْكَرَّةَ عَلَيْهِمْ وَأَمْدَدْنَاكُمْ بِأَمْوَالٍ وَبَنِينَ وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ أَكْثَرَ نَفِيرًا. And we gave back to you the return, victory over them, the Babylonians. And we reinforced you with wealth and with sons, with progeny, that increased you in number, that made you many. This was the prophecy Isaiah was delivering to them with regards to the Babylonians and their enslavement. Should they not change their ways, what's going to happen to them? What will be their state? Now we want to look at the main prophecy he was sent to deliver with regards to the two prophets. So the text here, you will find it. I put an image there of the Codex Sinaiticus and the text there with the markings and everything on page 137. And then on page 38, you will find another figure there. That's from the great Isaiah scroll in the original Hebrew that it was transcribed in, that was found in the caves of Qumran. So we're not going to go into those texts. My pronunciation of them is very weak. I'm probably going to make a clown of myself. So we'll just look at the English translation. Now this translation is my own translation. So I want to show you how I have translated it first, and then we'll compare it to a scholar's translation, a biblical scholar's translation. Okay. So he says, Isaiah, in the book of Isaiah 39, 11 and 12, listen carefully. And the vision of all, which is the prophecy, is become unto thee as the words of the sealed book, which when delivered to one who is learned, thus saying, read this, I pray thee, he will but say, I cannot read this, for it is sealed. I'll explain what these words mean. But when the sealed book is delivered to the unlettered one in Hira, this word Hira is in the original texts. It is in this is why I have included the Codex Sinaiticus. It is in the Codex Sinaiticus. You will see it there in the figure. In the Greek, written by hand. To the unlettered one in Hira, the deliverer saying to him, read this, I pray thee. And he will say, I cannot read, I am unlettered. I cannot read, I am unlettered, I do not know how to read. Who is this prophecy referring to? I can see everybody smiling. You already know what I'm talking about. It's plain and clear. It's plain and clear, isn't it? And mind you, many contemporaries might try and go this way, that way. Many of the early Jewish scholars and theologians and Christian scholars and theologians actually affirmed Nabi Muhammad. They did. Maimonides or Moshe Maimonides, okay, who was a scholar, an Andalusian scholar, Jewish scholar, affirmed Nabi Muhammad, but he made a distinction. He said he was a true prophet, but he was only sent to the unlettered ones. He was not our prophet. But he affirmed that Nabi Muhammad was a prophet. Why? Because he cannot ignore this. It's in the text. He can't ignore this. This is the Jewish chicanery, you know. the Jews are very, very strange people. I don't know. Because many of the Arab Jews now, okay, who were in Medina at the time, when the Prophet ﷺ came and they observed him, and then they asked their rabbis and priests, isn't this the one who is in the book? Isn't this the one you were talking about? And then the rabbis said, no, it's not him. Yeah, but he's doing the exact same things you said he would do, and he's saying the exact same things you said he would. No, he's not the one. Yeah, but you say that this is the prophet. He's unlettered, okay? He's giving you prophecies. He's answering all your questions. All the tests that you put to him, he's giving you all the responses. Only a prophet would be able to do that. No, he's not the one. So where is the one? He's still coming. They're still waiting for him. This is the same thing. He's a prophet, but he's not our prophet. He's their prophet. Anyway, okay, this is my translation here. So if you look on the Codex Sinaiticus, you will find that word Hira. Now, you will also see, and I've enlarged that portion there so that you can see there is a correction that has been made in there by the scribe as well. And the reason why, based on what the biblical scholars say, the real ones, not the ones who are biased on their own favor, the objective scholars, the renowned ones, those who are sincere about it, they say that this is a possible error by the scribe when he was copying it from another text. And that the scribes, by the way, were not just anyone who could write. These were theologians themselves. So they were scholars of the Bible themselves who would be scribing it down. Not anybody was given that task. And this is something that the Jews and the Christians really upheld in their tradition as well. Not just anyone was allowed to touch the scrolls. Okay? You had to be a scholar of the book and a man of God to be allowed to even touch it, to to go into it and study it. So what they say is that it's possibly an error by the scribe who, when he saw the word Hira, did not know what it meant, because it's not a Greek word. It's a transliteration. It's a transliteration from another language, because a lot of the Bible itself was not revealed in Greek. It was not revealed in Greek, but the first language in which it was transcribed in was in Koine Greek, because that was the lingua franca of the time in that region. So it was transcribed in Greek. So they say that because this word is not actually a Greek word. Now the scribe, and this is something that the Greeks used to do, they used to name regions not based on what the region was called. They used to give them their own names. So to the north, the Ashkenazi people were called Scythians. Scythia is a Greek word. Ashkenaz is the original word of those people. The Egyptians, the word Egypt or Aegyptia actually is a Greek word. It's a Greek word for what the people of Mizraim were called, or their land was called. Now in the language of the Mizraim people, the word of the land itself, the name, the Greeks couldn't pronounce it. It's not part of their phoneticism. The word like Hira is a word that is not a name of a place or a location of renown. So the Greeks would never have heard about it. It's the name of a cave on a mountain somewhere in the Arabian desert, called Bakka or Mecca. That no one knew about at the time, possibly was not a place of renown. So even the word Mecca or Bakka in the Bible, it's been played around a little bit, because the early scribes did not know what these places were. Okay, so this is probably why the scribe who was inscribing this did not recognize this as an official word. Now, if you look at the Greek dictionaries and you put in this word, and I've put the Greek there for you as well, if you want to try this out, put it in the translation and you will see. It translates, rather it is a transliteration itself of the word Hira. So Dr. Bruce Chilton, who is a PhD in the New Testament, he's a scholar of the Bible, he's given his translation. Now look at his translation in his book, the Targum Isaiah, published 1987. He has removed the word Hira because of this dispute, because it's not a Greek word in and of itself. So he probably doesn't even know how to translate it. So he's removed that word. So look at the verse without this word in it. He says, "And the book will be given to one who does not know the book, saying, read this. And he will say, I don't know how to read." Isaiah 29:12. Even without the word Hira in there, even without the word Hira, it is more than evident as to what this verse entails. So let's break it down then. Okay, from my translation of that verse. The sealed book is what? Al-Quran. Why is it sealed? Why is it sealed? Because at the time the prophecy was being made, and up until the time that it was revealed unto Nabi Muhammad, it remained sealed in the Lawh al-Mahfuz, until the deliverer who is mentioned in the verse will bring the Quran when he is ordained to do so, and he will reveal it to the prophet to whom he was told to reveal it. Okay? And it will remain sealed until that time, such that when he gives him to read it, he will say, I don't know how to read. But let's look at Isaiah number 11 first. Who is this referring to? Number 11, not 12, Isaiah 11. Who is Isaiah 11 referring to? He says what? When the book is delivered to someone who is learned, he will and tell him, read this. He'll say, I can't read it. I cannot read it. I cannot read it. It is sealed. Why is it sealed for this person? This is because this is a comparative here now. This book has been given a special status. What's being said here is that if this book is given to some regular individual who, although he's learned and educated, has got all the PhDs from all the universities in the world, when this book is given to this individual and he's told, read it, he'll say, I don't know how to read this. I can't read this. This doesn't make sense to me. He'll think it's gibberish. This is the nature of the Quran. Irrespective of how educated you might think you are, if your heart is not pure, You're not going to get anything from it. لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. None can touch it. Its essence, its meaning, except those who are purified in their heart. But when this book is going to be given to the one who is unlettered, and he's told to read it, he'll say, I don't know how to read. Doesn't mean he doesn't know how to understand it. He just doesn't know how to read it. So he's an uneducated individual, and yet he will understand it in its entirety. Clear distinction that understanding is not done by the eyes, it's done by the heart. It's not done by the brain, it's done by the heart. It's not done by the intellect, it is done by the heart. Understanding is done by the heart. All these other elements are instruments that help you understand. Then comes the direct command to read. Iqra. Iqra. If you look at the word in the Greek, that word is directly translated to Iqra in Arabic. Directly, straight translation. There is no ambiguity in meaning there. Why? These are two scholastic languages. And these are the exact words of the Holy Prophet ﷺ when Jibril told him, Iqra. What did he say? Ma ana biqari. The exact same words that are in Isaiah 12. 29:12, the exact same words. In both different languages, in the Hebrew and in the Greek. So even with Hira removed, it's still you still know without a shadow of doubt, without much deliberation on the matter, who this is being referred to. Now, we pose the question. Why was this prophecy being revealed to the children of, or to the Israelites before even Nabi Isa being sent to them? Isn't that strange? Before even them being enslaved, Isaiah has been chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at this juncture in human history to give them a prophecy regarding a prophet who is not yet going to come for another 1,000 years. That's an interesting question, isn't it? Now, when we look at the first portion of the prophecy, this is the second portion of that prophecy. We now want to look at the first portion of the prophecy. Now we will understand why they are being told this one. So he says in Isaiah 7:14 and 16, verses 14 and 16, what does he say? Therefore, the Lord himself shall give you a sign. They're being told this before they were taken into enslavement. If you don't change your ways, this is going to happen to you. You're going to fall into disparity. You're going to go through this enslavement. Then you will ask for redemption. Your Lord will give you redemption. Then after that, your Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Immanuel. Butter and honey he shall eat, that he may know how to refuse evil and choose the good. For before the child shall know to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings. Which land did they abhor? Remember what happened at after Suleiman's death. What did they do? They departed from the rest of the Israelites. 10 tribes. They went north and they formulated their own kingdom. They hated the south. Right? Very interesting what happened then in America afterwards. The north hated the south. History repeating itself, maybe? It's not. Don't say, nah, people will start drawing a new conspiracy out of that. No, that's not what it means. I'm just throwing stuff around. No, it's not. That's not what it means. Before this happens, before this child understands how to refuse evil and choose good, the land that you abhor is going to be rid of both her kings. Because the south, the Judeans did not like the Israelites for having separated. And the Israelites did not like the Judeans because they didn't follow their ideology. So there was a king in Israel and there was a king in Judea. So these ones hated those ones and those ones hated these ones. And Isaiah is giving both of them the same prophecy. And he's telling them collectively, the land that you abhor, the land that you abhor and the land that you abhor, both of you are going to be rid of your kings. Meaning that your lands are going to be leaderless. And what's going to happen after that? You are going to be occupied by somebody else. Now, you can see how much is contained in just that verse, those two verses. Let's look at this word Immanuel. What does it mean? Immanuel is linguistically formed using two words from the Hebrew language, Imman and El. El means God. Okay? Imman from Amman bears the meaning in the Arabic language, direct translation in the Arabic language as ma'na. So ma'na and Amman have the same meaning. And ma'na means meaning. Astaghfirullah. So Imman and ma'na have the same meaning. Now, unfortunately, this can be incorrectly combined because you can't do that. You can't do that sort of a combination. You can't take Immanuel and then use the same combination in the Arabic language, because even though linguistically the terms are translatable, the terms themselves have different meanings in both the different languages. Imman does not mean meaning in Hebrew. It means word in Hebrew. And words have meanings. This is how the derivative is done, since words have meanings. So the same term, Imman, can have the meaning of word and the meaning of meaning. Meaning can be its meaning. Confused? Or you're okay? Okay. So it can be incorrectly combined as ma'na or ma'natullah. And that's the wrong usage. Because what that means is the meaning of Allah. There is no meaning of Allah. There's no such thing. Its correct translation in Arabic is kalimatullah. Kalimatullah. And this is found in Surah An-Nisa, ayah number 171. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya Ahl al-Kitab, La taghlu fi dinikum, wa la taqulu ala Allahi illa al-haq. O you people of the book, do not transgress into extremities in your deen. Don't go to extremities in your deen. And don't speak about Allah without the truth. Or don't speak of Allah except with the truth, or except as the truth. Okay? إِنَّمَا الْمَسِيحُ Isa ibn Maryam. Indeed, the Messiah, Isa, son of Maryam, Rasulullah, is the messenger of Allah. وَكَلِمَتُهُ, and is his word. Okay? So Nabi Isa is known as Kalimatullah. That's the word of Allah. We don't have the time to explain all that, what it means. There's a background and history involved in that. But I'm explaining to you what the verse in Isaiah entails and how much accuracy is contained in that. This is what Immanuel means. Kalimatullah. This is what Isaiah is telling them. That there will be born to a virgin mother a son, and she shall call him by the name Immanuel, Kalimatullah. Now, in Surah Al Imran, look at the ayat from ayah number 45, even slightly earlier than that. Look at all those ayats. I would say start from ayah number 40 and continue up until 60. Continue up until 60. It'll give you the whole story. The whole story of what's going on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ يَا مَرْيَمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُبَشِّرُكِ بِكَلِمَةٍ مِّنْهُ اسمه المسيح عيسى بن مريم وجيها في الدنيا والآخرة ومن المقربين. O Maryam, the angels say to her, O Maryam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has indeed brought glad tidings for you. He gives you glad tidings of a word from Him. بِكَلِمَةٍ minhu, a word from Him. Ismuhu Isa ibn Maryam. His name will be Isa, son of Maryam. This is Kalimatullah. This is Immanuel. And this is what Isaiah is telling them, that this is what's going to happen at that time. And so what did Nabi Isa do? Amr bil ma'ruf wa nahi anil munkar. He enjoined truth and righteousness, and he forbade evil. Isn't that what Isaiah is saying? That he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. This is what all the prophets did. So we argue hereby that whoever adheres to this principle, Amr bil ma'ruf wa nahi anil munkar, whoever adheres to this principle is in the followership of prophethood and righteousness. For this is fundamentally the prophetic way. Amr bil ma'ruf wa nahi anil munkar is the prophetic way. Whoever adheres to this is on the right path. Now whoever counters this by enjoining evil and forbidding good, i.e. making halal what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made haram, and then making haram what Allah made halal, okay? Turning things the other way around, disrupting the social order, saying no. Homosexuality is legal. No. Adultery can be legal. It's okay, it's fine, you can do it. No. Prostitution, you can do it, no problem. No. Riba is very good. Excellent riba. You make extra money, put it in your pocket, take the wife and kids for holiday. Riba, very good. Huh? Alcohol, excellent. 1 or 2 drinks with the friends, business meeting. Makes you feel like a professional. Yeah, you should take alcohol. Yeah. Little bit, not too much. If you take too much and you crash into somebody, then we have problems. But little bit halal, no problem. They actually do this. They justify these in Arab nations. They do. They go to Mufti and they get fatwa passed. Yes, they do. Intoxication, let's legalize it. Why not? Weed. Let's call it recreational drug. You see, this is called sophistry, making things sound nice. Riba is called what? It's called interest. Why is it called interest? It's a sweet word. It's better than usury. Usury sounds bad. You tell somebody, okay, this is the contract. We'll give you a loan, 20,000 and 2% usury. Are you okay with that? Who's gonna sign that contract? 2% usury, APR. Is that good? Use a nice word. Interest. But this is the devil. This is what he does. These are khutuwat shaitan. He nice. Slippery tongue, Yeah. The tree of immortality. Sounds good, doesn't it? A kingdom that never decays. Why wouldn't you want that? You see, this is how they do it. Yeah. So let's make weed legal. Let's get everybody intoxicated. Yeah, but then isn't intoxication bad for people? Because intoxication has a bad connotation. Isn't intoxication bad for people? Yeah, you're right. Let's call it a recreational drug. Yeah, that sounds nicer. Let's call it recreational drug. So they passed the legislation. In the US, okay? In the US, Las Vegas, they don't call it gambling. They call it gaming. So they have the Nevada Gaming Commission. They don't call it the Nevada Gambling Commission. And you can look this up. They've actually written articles about this as to why these kind of words are used. Some of it is doublespeak. But gaming sounds nicer than gambling. Gambling has a negative connotation in language. Gaming has a positive, it's pastime. It's a little bit of fun, Let's just kill the time a little bit. You see? So they do it like that. Change the wordings a little bit. People keep asking me, what do you mean by understanding the language? Yeah, I understand there's one thing, understanding the semantic form that a language takes, which is the English language. Understand the language in how it's executed. How is it articulated? Where is the chicanery taking place? When you understand that, you understand how they think, because language defines thoughts. You see? That you understand where the deception is taking place. How are they conning you? How are they tricking you? This is how you understand it. So you don't fall into the trap. You see? Now, one of the traps that they've used so far as getting people into the interest system, the usury, okay? Because Muslims understand now, oh, interest means bad, okay? So Muslims established that eventually, that interest is bad. It's riba. So what did they do? They used another term. They called it equity. Oh, you're building equity, aren't you? Yeah, no, get a house. Build your equity. See, they hide the other portion there. You can just factor it in. It's a little bit. It's not much. Don't worry about it. Yeah, but what about it's little, don't worry about it. Don't think about the interest so much, you don't get hung up on the interest. Think about equity. Equity is a good word. Interest is a bad word. Usury is an even worse word. So don't think about the bad stuff. Think about the good things. So, why is all this relevant? This is the question. Why is all this relevant? Everyone knows that Nabi Isa was born to a virgin mother. Even Jews know that. Even Christians, everyone knows that. Why is it relevant? Why is it relevant? It is relevant. There's an important piece here. You see, the strangeness is that the prophecy of Isaiah is not meant for the Muslims. It is not meant for the Christians. It was meant for the Israelites. This is why we made a distinction in the beginning. It wasn't meant for the Jews who got the term later on. It was meant for the Israelites. The prophet Isaiah was sent specifically to the Israelites to relay a very, very important message. That what you do, what you people will do, is going to have a monumental effect on human history. This is what we referred to the pivotal point on the event timeline. The decisions that they made would have a monumental effect on human history. And when the time came to make the decision, they made the wrong decision. Some of them accepted the message of Christ. Most of them rejected. And that changed the course of history permanently. It set everything in stone. Such that now what Nabi Sulaiman saw on his throne as the Jasad who would now come to conquer and use the power of the Holy Land to spread bloodshed, to spread corruption, to spread evilness and wickedness, was determinant on the Jews accepting or rejecting the true Messiah. We said that the Jasad that he saw already started his mission insofar as the jinn were concerned. But insofar as the humans were concerned, there was still a determinant element that had not yet taken place. This was the determinant element. Had the Jews accepted Nabi Isa alayhi salam, history would have taken an entirely different turn. You see? Now the last 2,000 years have been determined by the stance that the Jews take. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says unto them, even then, even after this second aspect took place, when they rejected the true Messiah, and he allowed the Romans to flood through the gates and to destroy them and to destroy the temple that they had built completely to the ground, he says to them, Asa rabbukum an yarhamakum. It may be that your Lord still has mercy on you. Wa in udtum udna. If you return with your treachery and your ingratitude and your oppression and your tyranny, we will return with our punishment, and that punishment will be straight through the akhirah. وَجَعَلْنَا جَهَنَّمَ لِلْكَافِرِينَ حَصِيرًا. We have placed Jahannam for the kafirin, because then it's just manifest disbelief. It's just manifest disbelief. Despite having warned you the first time, you still did it. Despite warning you the second time, you still did it. Despite giving you a third warning now, you still do the same thing. It's manifest kufr. There is no takfiri this, takfiri that. No, it's manifest kufr. And so Allah is saying it. We have made the hellfire, Jahannam, for the kafirin, a lovely prison bed. Very nice and comfortable for you to live there. 5-star rating. Jahannam is going to be your destination. This is the mercy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to them. Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, this is your last and final opportunity, your last chance. There's not going to be any other messenger after this. There's not going to be any other prophet after this. There's going to be no more communication from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala via divine ordinance and revelation after this. This is your last and final chance. This is what he's being told. This is what, they are being told. And this came in the Quran. And it's a message to the Jews. Asa Rabbukum an yarhamakum. It may be that your Lord still has mercy on you. Wa in udtum udna. But if you return with your treachery, we will return with our punishment. Then it's endgame for you. Khalas, no more mercy after that. This is what Isaiah was giving to the Israelites. This is why he gave them prophecy of these two prophets. This was divine ordinance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew this is what they're going to do. And he's communicating it to them. If you don't rectify your ways, you're going to be destroyed. And the decision you make is going to have a monumental impact on human history. Now look at the world. Now that you have all this, now that we have discussed all these elements, now look at the world around you. What do you see? What do you see? Can you deny it anymore? Those who are in denial, can you deny it anymore? How much more do you want? How much more evidence do you require? And we are going to talk about the deniers. It's coming soon. Who are these deniers? And what does Allah say to them for their denial? Wailun. Wailun yawma'idhin lil mukaththibin. Woe unto those who are in denial. We will take a look at that, inshallah. Let's end here, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Subhanaka wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. بارك الله فيكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله خيرا والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين آمين يا رب العالمين. آمين يا رب العالمين. جزاك الله خيرا.